Well, hello, friends. Salt City Hoops live postcast with you today. We'll do a little short one here today, talking about the Jazz, who are 9-3, beating the Lakers, who are 2-8. Those are two records that maybe if you didn't have the most optimistic thought on the Lakers, you would at least think those records would be reversed. Jazz are undefeated at home. Something I quickly noticed right before I went live, and I thought we should at least include that reference that we have a good undefeated team here today. At home, and the losses on the road have been tight, good games. Even the Nuggets game, that kind of got away from the Jazz a little bit, was competitive, good basketball, and certainly wasn't a totally disparate teams on that road loss to the Nuggets. This has been a team 9-3 and competitive in all 12. Just always a tough situation that you're walking into. And I was listening to Nate Duncan's podcast the other day. It was today, actually. I don't know why I said the other day. I was listening to Nate Duncan's podcast today when he was talking about sample sizes and when they become relevant. And I encourage you to listen to his Eastern Conference review for the week to get some more accurate data on who provided this information and what have you. But you can, from what he was able to summarize from this other researcher, you can actually have statistically significant results of performances on various factors of the game with as little as 6 games played, a 6-game sample size. Some aspects of basketball, like shooting performances, that requires a much longer tail and sample size to actually have a statistically significant sample outside of a reasonable margin of error. But there's some things like pace of play, defense, offense, how many wins you have, and what your projected win totals are that actually starts to become relevant at around 10 games in, right? And barring a trade or an injury, this team is what it is. I think we are about 80% of the way there towards figuring out that the Jazz are like a playoff level basketball team, right? And I say 80% because I don't think you can firmly say like this is absolutely a top 8 team in the West right now. But what that 80%, this is probably a playoff team, does indicate is that there is a 0% chance that the Utah Jazz are a fluke basketball team and that they're actually bad. Like, there is a 0.0% chance that this team is bad. This team is quite great. And it's been a joy to watch. We talk about it every single time we do these postcasts, is that this team is just a joy to watch. There are a lot of examples today when the Lakers, they were without LeBron James today, so they had to rely on Anthony Davis a lot. And Anthony Davis posting up Lowry Markkanen was a nightmare for Markkanen, and Davis was scoring a lot. So the Jazz tried to switch it up a little bit as far as like they kept Markkanen guarding Anthony Davis, but they would send some doubles, or if they got caught in a weird mismatch where they had to scramble around, the Jazz defense operates fantastically in a scramble around system. And guys like Kelly Olynyk and Lowry Markkanen and Jordan Clarkson and Mike Conley, these guys have been around for a little bit. They're very, and Jared Vanderbilt, when he's out there, is also good at this. He was still out with his mid body injury. They're so good at just random deflections and just saying, fuck it, this play already has Anthony Davis being guarded by Colin Sexton. Sexton's going to pull the chair out from Davis. We're going to send 2 guys flying at him and force Davis to make a great pass. And not only is Davis going to be forced to make a great pass, but we got to trust these other Lakers total jamokes to make a good cut and receive that pass and actually score the basketball. The Jazz defense knows what they are, which is probably not a very good defense, right? Yes, Jazz scored a bazillion points today, 139 points, and that would have been, it's the most points the Lakers have given up this year. By the way, the Lakers have a pretty good defense. I mentioned this on Friday night as well. So like that is impressive to score that many points, and it was a great points per 100 possessions. It was really, really great. But the Lakers offense was also quite efficient a lot. So the Jazz defense is not a good defense. I had a discussion last night about the Jazz defense and how good it is. And what's refreshing is that game to game, the team tries their ass off and they're going for those deflections and they're going for knowing what their limitations are. You see Olynyk committing fouls. He's trying to draw a charge 9 times a game. He knows what his limitations are, right? Now, a single time today did Will Hardy intentionally put Kelly Olynyk guarding Anthony Davis, because it was pretty much that's a known quantity that Olynyk is just going to commit a bunch of fouls and he can't defend him there, right? There's no rim protection on this team except for energetic weak side. Let's give it a shot, right? Like Jordan Clarkson's block rate is way up. We're getting some surprising weak side help from Lauri Markkanen. Obviously, Kessler, when he's in the game, is obviously helpful there, but you're just not getting that rim protection from your guards, right? You're not getting rim protection. We've had a couple nice blocks from Colin Sexton randomly this season, but he's absolutely not a Derek White type or even a John Wall type, right? Like the best shot blocking point guard of all time. He's just a guy out there. Malik Beasley's not going to protect the rim. Jared Vanderbilt is a great defender as like a overall piece, but he's not a rim protector, right? Like he's great at rebounding and he can contest shots, but this guy's not flying out from the weak side like a Jeremy Grant type. So this defense is limited as to what it can do at the rim, and defenses that cannot stop shots at the rim are just not going to be good defenses. But what I mentioned last night that I'm pretty sold on is this team is absolutely going to be a top 20 defense, and if you have a top 10 offense to go along with that, that's a playoff team, right? And it's a top 20 defense with upside to just completely fuck your shit up on any given night. Right? Either they figure out your tricks or they just kind of they're figuring out your offense in a way that's like, you can't beat us in the ways you want to beat us because we're just going to muck things up and be weird about it. It's the way the Clippers played defense when they didn't have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on the floor, right? Just throw a bunch of shit out there, and they had much better individual defenders than the Jazz do, but they would also just try a bunch of random stuff. Coach Lewis, that's his thing, throwing random shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. So the Mavericks will try that a lot, just kind of switching up a bunch of stuff and seeing what happens. So without a lot of great defenders that you can plug and play at certain positions, you're left with just saying like, hey, we got to get turnovers, right? And when I look at the Jazz turnover percentage as far as what they've done historically, right? I mentioned it the other day in an article. The Jazz ranked 6th in the NBA this year after tonight's games. 6th in the NBA at forcing turnovers. The prior 3 seasons, they ranked 29th, 30th, and 28th. So second to last, dead last, and third to last in the league at forcing turnovers. There's a reason for that, right? You get a top 5, top 1, top 10 defense by just saying, we're not trying shit. We're just going to send everything over to Rudy Gobert, and he's going to clean it all up. And this is the inverse of that, right? Where you're not going to craft a top 10 defense by flying around with your limitations, but you can, with good energy and good coaching, avoid a 25th, 26th, 27th ranked defense. When I ranked all the defenses going in preseason, I looked at this roster, and and I'm a Jazz optimist, right? You know, I call into radio shows, and I call myself the world's biggest, the world's most optimistic Jazz fan, right? And so I'm pretty optimistic about what this team can do. But when I was looking at a lineup of Conley, Sexton, Markkanen, Vanderbilt, and Olynyk as the starting 5, and then you got bench guys, and I knew Rudy Gay was going to play a lot of minutes. Obviously Clarkson, I did not include Clarkson in that starting 5. And then Malik Beasley, who's fine. It's like, guys, this is a 28th ranked defense, especially when you compare it to how some of the other prior bad defenses had been improving over the past couple of years. You know, Houston was still going to be dead last, but maybe they took a tick up, right, with a coach trying to save his job. And Şengün maybe improving a little bit as a center there in Houston. Jalen Green becoming a little bit better. But other than that, like, the other bad defenses were all kind of getting a little better. And I was like, this Jazz team is 29th in defense. They can be 20th. And right now they're 14th. And I'm pretty impressed by that. I'm really, really, really impressed by that. I don't think the 14th is going to hold because they just give too many shots at the rim. But like, they don't, as much as we belabor Kelly Olynyk and Jared Vanderbilt, they're foul trouble. The team doesn't really foul a whole lot. Lauri Markkanen does not foul a whole lot. He's never in foul trouble. The guards are really good. Very few total dumb shit fouls. We saw the one game, I think it was it the Timberwolves game that had something like 60 combined fouls. It was just absolute nightmare for both teams. But Utah just generally doesn't foul a whole lot, so that's good. Usually you can point to opponent shooting percentages as like a luck-based thing that tends to regress and that can weaken the defense. No, opponents are shooting a pretty much normal distribution of threes and making a normal distribution of threes against the Jazz. So it's very possible that you can keep this up for an entire season and finish top 15. And if so, yeah, if you're going to be 9th in offense and 14th in defense, yeah, you're now a top 4 seed in the West. So I got a whole lot of optimism here, having a great time with how the Jazz are playing. Also, we kicked the shit out of the Lakers 2 games in a row. That feels great. You get Russell Westbrook coming in here today, and you look at his scoring, you're like, wow, 22 points, 8 of 14 from the field, made 2 of 3 from 3. Boy, that's annoying that he shows up against the Jazz. Well, when you combine what he does at the other end of the court, he was remarkably efficient offensively and actually was pretty interesting player to watch offensively. Had a lot of bursts, took it into Walker Kessler a few times, went 4 of 4 from the stripe, attacking the paint, looked really good. But then he finishes minus 23 in just 24 minutes because he is a complete zero on the other end. Just non-existent basketball player out there. He's a bench gunner. And you know what? I actually think that would be a pretty interesting role for him going forward in his end career. I don't think Westbrook is as dense and dumb as people make him out to be. I think he's a very prideful player that just needs to graduate a little bit year after year. And I think whoever he signs with next year is going to be happy with the Russell Westbrook that they bring off the bench, right? It's some sort of playoff bench role that you can do for 15 to 20 minutes, right? What if he's the bench guard you put like coming off the bench for the Mavericks, right? When Luka needs a break for 15 minutes or Luka needs a break for 12 to 15 minutes in a regular season game or a playoff game or something like that. You do a lot worse than Russell Westbrook there. Of course, he's probably going to be too prideful to take that kind of role. But you need to mitigate his defense somehow, right? And this Lakers defense is pretty much okay if they have their full complement of players. Again, they're missing LeBron today. They're missing Lonnie Walker today, who's been pretty solid defensively for the Lakers. Surprisingly, Walker was miserable in San Antonio, but he's been pretty solid defensively for LA from what I've seen. But you just need way more from him defensively if you're going to have him be out there for a lot. So he was absolutely miserable from a defensive standpoint, and Jazz just totally feasted on him all game. Pretty much every Jazz player provided excellent play today, including, as everyone knows, friend of the program, Talen Horton-Tucker. Everyone knows that Talen Horton-Tucker might be my least favorite player on the Jazz, just because I remember watching him in LA last year too and seeing what was promising skills completely atrophy, right? Just he couldn't shoot. He was very slow. He was supposed to be good defensively, but he was just fouling a lot in Los Angeles last year. He commits dumb turnovers all the time. And boy, the first 2-3 weeks of the season, that was the THT we were getting. He has been so much more decisive in these 3 LA games. And going even back to a little bit towards the Mavericks game, I thought he was pretty solid. And I think it was that second Grizzlies game, he had a pretty decent game. But over the past 2 weeks, Talen Horton-Tucker has been way less ball sticky. As soon as he gets the ball, he goes. And that is just not something he was doing the first couple weeks of the season. He would get the ball and the ball would stick and nothing would happen. And then he would start dribbling and he'd execute one of his just horrible behind the back dribbles or spin move dribbles that from a standstill and with his very poor acceleration, they're just non-existent. They're not going to beat a defender, right? And the best THT plays we saw from the first couple weeks of the season were him just careening into players with his burly frame and just throwing up a Hail Mary layup and they were going in, right? And I've started to accept that, like, with his long arms, he actually kind of has a good feel for just kind of like being under the rim and throwing up random shit. So I think he's a little bit better at that than it looks. But those still aren't like, okay, great shot, buddy. Like, you're not looking for those kind of layups as efficient offense. And now he's getting the ball and he's moving. He's immediately getting the ball off the catch and moving. And so those weird behind the back dribbles or those weird spin moves, all of a sudden he's got this, his big body has inertia to turn that spin move and that slow dribble move into actual creation of space with his defender, and he's getting really nice layups out of it. And I'm waxing on about Talen Horton-Tucker because he had a poster dunk today over Damian Jones. And again, this is the Lakers against his old team, who they traded Patrick Beverley for, who, by the way, also didn't play. So unfortunately, we did not get a Patrick Beverley tribute video on the big screen today. But it was a dunk that I would be surprised isn't in, like, NBA TV's top 20 dunks of the season. You got to take a look at it. I would show it on the stream, but I would probably get copyright violated like within 3 seconds by the NBA. So just a fabulous dunk by THT. Go check it out now, tomorrow, whatever. And he's just playing within himself. Yesterday, not a great game yesterday against the Clippers, but I thought his defense was fine, and he had that crazy step back. He had another step back three today that I don't know why he's taking them. But the team loves him. He has good vibes. He gives a shit, right? And especially defensively, and that's really what you're looking for at this point. So THD has now, formally announced that THD is now firmly like one tick above acceptable for me, and I don't hate it when he's out there, which means that the only member of the Utah Jazz doghouse for me is Rudy Gay, who needs no introduction or conclusion as to why Rudy Gay is a frustrating watch for this team. So from there, Markkanen, this is kind of why I thought that he might not hit some of his rebound over-unders for season total stats. Just 3 rebounds today, and going against Davis, it was very difficult for him to guard in the post. But Markkanen's a gamer, and he was constantly running, trying, not fouling, right? Like, Davis was beasting him in the post, but Markkanen was contesting some shots, and eventually, after 4 or 5 straight makes, Davis starts missing some layups around the rim, and Markkanen's defense was C+, right? And if you're given C+ defense against post offense, yeah, you might actually get some and without sending a double team, then you actually might get some decent rebounding out of that. And I thought Markkanen just gamed hard, and on the offensive end, he didn't let a made basket against him completely derail what he needed to do offensively. It was just run, and receive great passes from the distributors. But we saw a lot more Markkanen initiating offensive action today than we have seen in previous games, and I've belabored Markkanen as this dependent threat that I think Jazz fans seem to be cautious that he's some future star, because we're not seeing a lot of Markkanen as the primary initiator of an offense, and he had some coast-to-coast plays today where he played great defense, received the pass off a rebound, or retrieved the rebound himself, and just fought through some stuff for a layup. He had a couple dribble drives through tons of traffic for contested layups that actually weren't difficult shots. He fought through a lot of handsy defense, getting all the way to the rim for a nice layup. That's the type of star player that's the ascension you need from if you're expecting Markkanen to become a star of some kind. So really impressed with Markkanen's having the ball in his hand. Jordan Clarkson was my star of the game. Again, a slower second half for Clarkson when it comes to shot attempts and maybe a couple misses. Completely, well, let me say, it should not at all cloud or diminish what that guy did in the first half, which was, for the second night in a row, completely dominate the first half from behind the arc and manipulating the defense with great passing. And even his turnovers are acceptable, right? Like, he's making these no-look passes that are on the money that his teammates aren't expecting, or he's making the right reads that are just bouncing off of toes or legs or something. Clarkson completely kicked ass in the first half. He had a buzzer-beating 3 falling away, ended up basically in the laps of the courtside seats, and he played through the crowd. He was fabulous. Colin Sexton, another really efficient day, plus 19 in only 28 minutes, off because Sexton and Russell Westbrook both came off the bench. Sexton wasn't always matched up against Russell Westbrook, and having Westbrook defend him, but if Sexton was manipulating the defense and getting to the rim, like there was just nothing that Russell Westbrook was doing at all to prevent Sexton with his minutes, so he ends up a team-leading plus 19. By the THT, also a plus 19 in 28 and 20 minutes for each of those two gentlemen, respectively. So great bench players for them. With Davis feasting in the post, you might think, why aren't we trying Olynyk? Why aren't we trying Walker Kessler? Well, we actually stuck Kelly Olynyk on Russell Westbrook for as much as we could, because you knew Westbrook wasn't a danger to shoot the 3, at least efficiently. Of course, Westbrook went 2 of 3 from 3 today, but you're not really worried about that. And you're just, like I mentioned, if you put Olynyk on Davis, you're just asking for 6 fouls from Kelly Olynyk, and it would be helpful to have Olynyk on the floor. And Walker Kessler, you're also asking the same thing, right? If you want to pair Walker Kessler with Lauri Markkanen against some sort of Anthony Davis and Wenyen Gabriel lineup, I think you're sacrificing some of what Kelly Olynyk can do to really bend a limited Lakers defense with some of the injuries they had. And with the Lakers perimeter defenders being what they are today, you really want 2 of Conley and Clarkson and Sexton on the floor at all times. And then so you're leaving, really the gap you're opening is the small forward position, right? And if you want to do Markkanen, Olynyk, and Kessler, I think you're leaving the opportunity on the floor where you could play all 3 of the guards that I mentioned earlier, or you're inserting Malik Beasley into that lineup that really completely stretches out this team and the Lakers defense. And the only quality defender they're putting out there of Anthony Davis, he is limited because of all the actions you can throw out there with speed. And I'd much rather have Walker Kessler playing against, the Davis backups, right? The Damian Jones, Wenyen Gabriel. It was funny, Damian Jones at the end of the game, he attempted to dunk over Walker Kessler. I don't think Kessler actually blocked it. I think but he did contest it pretty well, and Damian Jones missed a dunk. So the immediate next possession later, Damian Jones attempts a dunk from 5 further feet out, trying to Blake Griffin dunk it over Walker Kessler, and completely doesn't even come close. It was really stupid to watch. So I just think you'd much rather have Kessler playing against the bench defenses. Don't throw him against Davis for no reason, because Davis is definitely going to outclass him there. And just try to beat the Lakers with more points. And it was really easy to do Friday night and tonight of just playing harder against a 2-8 Lakers team that just does not want to try. They do not want to try on these things. So, loved Markkanen and Clarkson today. Conley was his usual self, 12 assists in 24 minutes for Mike Conley. He's back to point guard Mike Conley. If you haven't read his interview with Tony Jones on The Athletic, I highly urge you to do so. Normally, these player interviews, these written pieces, they're fluff. I really just don't take much from it. But you can almost see Mike Conley smiling throughout this whole interview. And he provided a lot of insightful quotes about his experience and the struggles from his first season when he really struggled in Utah to last year in Dallas. I really enjoyed reading that, and he was great today. So I want this to be a little shorter one because it's Tuesday night, and we Mountain Time folks are subject to needing the Lakers to be on at 8:15. But I hope you guys had a chance to watch all 30 teams today. But friend of the program, Andrew Streeter, is tuned in, and he always has a smart comment. So I'm going to close tonight by having Streeter give us some thoughts on what he noticed today, probably to fight with me about the Utah Jazz defense. But Andrew, what do you think about beating the Lakers twice?
I am not here to fight with you, Mark. I don't know how you feel about plus minus. I don't think you've ever talked about it. I don't think I've heard you talk about it. But your nemesis, Taylor Horton Tucker, led the Utah Jazz tonight with a plus 19 in 20 minutes. 15 points. And clearly, Coach Hardy, he likes him, man. He likes him. And I think it's easy to forget that he's 21 years old because he looks like an old man out there. But he's got some some strength and some physicality and some length that I think, especially probably defensively, that I would like to see, him turn the corner. And I think that he's playing better.
Yeah, and, I talked about it a little bit earlier, and to sum up what I think about THT, the grand conclusion is that he's now not a hated player of mine, which I think is a big evolution in my goals, and in my ethos, that I don't fucking loathe Taylor Horton Tucker, and I actually kind of enjoy watching him out there. And part of that though is Streeter, I think you can sympathize with this, is especially over watching the Jazz over the past 3, 4, 5 years, and what Quinn Snyder was able to implement with advantage-based offense, and it's been written about and talked about too much at this point, is seeing the ball stick with a player where the ball shouldn't stick. I don't mind if the ball sticks with Donovan Mitchell, right? You don't mind it when the ball sticks with Joe Johnson in the clutch. You don't mind it when the ball stuck with Gordon Hayward. And when the ball sticks in places it shouldn't, right? Like Jordan Clarkson off the bench 2 years ago, right? Before we've seen this fully formed Jordan Clarkson. When the ball sticks with Taylor Horton Tucker, and the ball, everything would stop, it really fucked up the offense so much that it was very painful to watch. And what his skill, his athleticism, what he provides, he's a slower, more built player. And if he's stopping the ball, that is causing him to not use his weight as like inertia, right? And he's not a Boris Diaw type where he can meander and really shove his butt into places. He actually he's got a good handle. He just doesn't have very good shake. So getting him on the move and him not sticking the ball in his hands and just moving to the next thing and getting to the rim very quickly has turned him into a much more exciting, fun-to-watch basketball player. I do not enjoy watching him shoot step-back threes, but the ridiculous one he made yesterday and the ridiculous one he made today were actually just like straight up in the flow, where he got the ball immediately and said, "I'm shooting it." Right? The ball didn't.
Very no, yes. He's still very much a no, yes. Guy.
Yeah, and if when he gets the ball and if he thinks about shooting and then shoots it, it's a disaster. But instead, he's saying, "Look, this defense expects me to shoot, and I'm gonna bend them even more my way by immediately deciding what to do with the basketball." And that is what has become more entertaining about him than before. His defense, I think his best skill right now is rebounding on some of these smaller units. When Walker Kessler's the only big out there, and you really see THT fighting for rebounds, I think when we talk about this active, frenetic defense of the Jazz that can sometimes be bad and sometimes be good, when the Jazz defense is humming, especially in those bench lineups, it's usually because of some shit that THT did. So I like his long arm philosophy of just being like, I'm gonna figure out ways to do things. So I think plus minus is a valid stat. I think it helps for just to do a quick little like what happened today. For in small things, like I don't think Kelly Olynyk's plus 8 tells a story at all, but I definitely think that plus 19 for Taylor Horton Tucker and plus 19 for Colin Sexton in under 30 minutes for each of those, and minus 23 for Russell Westbrook in 24 minutes, those are actual stories. You can really depend on those things as real data. So when the data absolutely spoke to him today that he was impactful today. In the turnovers, I'm always going to point to turnovers for THT because of his limited abilities offensively, and he just had one today. So that's going to be key for a team that will typically throw it all over the gym today. 15 turnovers for Utah, still not great, but I'm seeing a lot of these are from some of our end of the bench guys. So In non-garbage time, I'm counting, I think, maybe 11 or 12 turnovers, which is completely acceptable amount. So, I'll give you one more comment. I'm going to let everyone else enjoy their Tuesday night because I'm tired.
I'm just going to say it's election eve, and in true election fashion, you can stop the count. The Jazz are 9-3 and atop the West, and I think we're going to just stop there.
I can't think of a better thematic conclusion myself. I'm sorry to anyone that I'm leaving hanging. It's 11 o'clock, and I gotta go check out and see what else happened in the NBA today while I completely pass out in 15 minutes. So yeah, go vote tomorrow if you haven't already. Counts are in. This team is good. This team is guaranteed to be a good basketball team. I hope you all had a great night. Any night being the Lakers is a lot of fun. So we'll catch you in the next one. We're on the road on the East Coast. Got some 5 o'clock tips. We'll see what our broadcast schedule is like over the next few days. But an interesting East Coast trip with some struggling Hawks and Wizards teams and a banged up Philly team. So man, those teams aren't looking so hot. This could be a continue this win streak. I'm rambling, so I'm going to shut up, and I will catch you all in the next game. Thanks for tuning in.